Hey, what's up? This is Dr. Taylor, and leaky gut is such a trendy term, especially in the autoimmune world. We know it's the root source of a lot of autoimmunity, but how do you know if you have a leaky gut? That's what I'm going to go through in this video, is how I helped somebody named Tammy uncover her leaky gut. And the point of it is, it wasn't that obvious, and we required some testing to look into that. But let me show you, and let's jump into that. So, for one thing, what does leaky gut mean? It means intestinal permeability. Now, what does that mean? Our gut cells are very tightly held together. In fact, they're held together by something called tight junctions. And what happens is those tight junctions can become broken and things can get through into the bloodstream, and it can drive a lot of different symptoms. In fact, I'm going to show you some of the science behind this, but as I said, it's the root source. It's known to be the root source of a lot of autoimmune conditions. But they also say, how do you know if you have a leaky gut? If you have a vowel in your name. So that's a lot of us, right? So how do you know if you have a leaky gut? And leaky gut is on a spectrum and things like that. But here's how I helped Tammy find hers and a little bit of the science behind it. So let me just jump right into this. So this is a urinary organic acids test. And the point of this one is it's perfect. So this is the intestinal microbial overgrowth. And the point is that if we had just done this test, we'd say, good news, Tammy, your gut is perfect, because we don't really see many abnormals. Some of these are yeast markers. Some of these are mold markers. They're very, very important when they are high. But again, if we just looked at this, we'd say, hey, your gut looks great. We don't know what your problem is. Your gut looks great. These are some of her bacterial markers. Now, we did 3 labs, and I'm going to show you those because it was the third one that got us the answers. But this is a GI map stool test. And these are her commensal or keystone bacteria. I mean, the good bugs in our gut that should all get along. And in our gut, we want diversity and abundance. So a lot of these bugs and a lot of different types of bugs. And there's over, 10 pounds of bacteria in the human digestive tract. It's insane to think about. But we can see some lows here, right? So we're starting to get somewhere. But this doesn't really say leaky gut or not. It just says you're low on some bacteria. Now, some of these, when you're working with a skilled practitioner, might say, hey, some of these are more important than others with regards to leaky gut. Some of these are important butyrate producers or otherwise. You may recognize like lactobacillus, because most probiotics are lactobacillus, or bifidobacterium is very important and declines as we age and things like that. But any lows are just saying low diversity and abundance. So yeah, these are the intestinal health markers. Now, if you start from the bottom, calprotectin is a marker of gut inflammation. It's the gold standard marker for the diagnosis and monitoring of inflammatory bowel diseases like Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. So you might say, hey, good news, Tammy, your gut's not inflamed. But it's true with this marker, but there's a lot of different ways that gut inflammation can show up. Calprotectin is a sign that there's neutrophil infiltration, which you might not have that. In fact, this eosinophil activation protein, that's really borderline, that's more of an accurate marker of gut inflammation. But this is a gluten sensitivity, anti-gliadin IgA. Her secretory IgA is on the high end, or beta-glucuronidase is on the high end, or pancreatic elastase is on the low end, which all that matters, but none of those say, like, oh, you have a leaky gut. The next one is foods. And again, you hear people say that if you have food sensitivities, it's a sign of a leaky gut. But most people, if you run food sensitivity tests on them, they might have some things on there. It does not mean that you have a leaky gut. It just might be a part of the puzzle. Now, hers were the big 3: wheat, eggs, and dairy. Now, there's a few others on there. Obviously, you can see it: raspberry, ginger, rye, pepper, and beef. But gluten, dairy, eggs, public enemy number 1, 2, and 3, and sometimes interchangeable. And sometimes we see people where all 3 of them show up. Sometimes it's 2 out of the 3. Sometimes it's 1 out of 3, whatever. But that's hers. But here's the one where we really started getting some leaky gut answers. This lab is from KBMO. I also run a very similar lab from Cyrex oftentimes, and I've got other YouTube videos explaining that, like what kind of leaky gut do you have? But these say if any of the markers are abnormal, you need to consult a practitioner for a gut healing protocol or things like that. And she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positive. So one of them is to Candida, which again didn't show up on her other test. That's again why we sometimes cast a broad net. But these two right here are to zonulin. And LPS is another thing that can come from leaky gut. It comes from gram-negative bacteria. It's highly inflammatory, and there's a lot to LPS. But it's an indication of dysbiosis of the bacteria. And the zonulin is more specifically associated with leaky gut. Now, here's a couple studies just kind of confirming that. Now, this is just one. But, this is from the interpretive guide of that lab. It says Candida antibodies might be a precursor to leaky gut. Zonulin is a marker of intestinal permeability, otherwise known as leaky gut. If a patient has elevated zonulin levels, the normal regulation of the tight junctions is compromised. Occludin is another marker of tight junctions and a sign that the tight junctions are breaking down. She didn't have that one. And then LPS, elevated levels of antibody against LPS may be indicative of leaky gut syndrome and other gastrointestinal inflammatory things. If any of the 8 markers are positive, we recommend to consult your provider with regards to a gut healing protocol. And that's exactly what we're doing. Now, here is just one study about zonulin. Zonulin is very, very, very well researched and very, very well known. With regards to zonulin, and especially not just zonulin levels, because those can be measured, but these are zonulin antibodies is what we're measuring. But this says all diseases began in the leaky gut. The role of zonulin-mediated gut permeability in the pathogenesis of some chronic inflammatory diseases. Now, I don't know if this ever got published. This was in peer review, it looks like. But Alessio Fasano is one of the top 3, most famous researchers in the autoimmune world, and especially in the celiac and gluten world. Alessio Fasano is a very, very famous name who's out of Mass General Hospital, and also out of Italy as well. So here's a paper that's from the same paper, but it says here's some of the chronic diseases in which zonulin has been linked. If you look down the list, it's a lot of them. We got MS, we got enterocolitis, we got obesity, we got type 1 diabetes, we got autism, we got aging, colitis. It's a little bit of everything that can be associated with. And then here's a picture that just shows this leaky gut, as a progression. If you're in stage 1, that's a normal permeability. The good things can get in, the bad things stay out, and that's what we want. As you progress, you get a minor defect of the barrier, and it's a little worse. You get a little more inflammation, you're a little more, have food sensitivities, and you start this vicious cycle of inflammation. Now, as you go to 3 and 4, it's real bad. It gets really bad, especially down here at 4. It might say, chronic inflammation or IBD. There's the exact same picture that's from another paper from Nature Reviews in Gastroenterology, I want to say. But it's the exact same picture with 1, 2, 3, 4. But anyway, I digress. But you can have a different levels of leaky gut. And I don't know, for Tammy, it doesn't say like, oh, you're a 4. But I told her, I said, hey, you're not a 1. And you're probably somewhere on here. And we want it to go the other way. So there's a lot of things you can do as far as a gut healing protocol. But that's, again, the point of working with a skilled practitioner and working with somebody that knows what to do about it too. Because once you find the problem, what do you do about it? And that's, again, the thing of if we find yeast, it's a different solution than if we find leaky gut. Our goal might be those tight junctions. Our goal might be zonulin. We want to cut those foods out. We want to heal the gut, et cetera. But how do you know if you have a leaky gut? You test for it. And testing can still be a little bit of need some interpretation, let's say. But that's how I helped Tammy find her leaky gut.